Hi there, it's Dr. Bernstein, and this is the overview for week 2 of our course. So in order to get to the tasks for this week, we're going to go over to the content section of our D2L page. And you'll see there's week 1 is here, and now week 2 is also listed. I'm going to click on the checklist. And you'll see that you need to watch this video. The link is not up yet because I have not yet finished making the video. And basically you'll see from the top of the page that my expectation is that it's probably going to take you about 6 hours to complete all the tasks on this checklist. Discussion post number 3 is due by 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, March 9th. Discussion post 4 is due by 11:59 p.m. on Saturday, March 12th, and all the other tasks need to be completed by the end of the week. So step 1 is to watch the welcome video. Step 2, read all of your fellow class members' responses to discussion post number 1. Then what you need to do is decide on at least one person's post that you want to respond to. As you'll see, we're here at discussion post 3. The main goal of this assignment is to start generating a dynamic and intellectually focused online community. Now, I've been teaching for a long time, since 1993, and I'm really convinced that students benefit the most when they allow themselves to get involved in the day-to-day life of the course by participating in discussions, asking questions, and being willing to test out their interpretations. This is the first time that I'm teaching an online class, so I'm experimenting. I'm trying to keep it as organized and as exciting and as personalized as possible. So just bear with me, but also participate. And if you have questions, ask them. I encourage you to ask questions. So last week, you introduced yourselves and posted your comparisons. Now it's time for you to respond to at least 2 people's comparisons. Each response must be at least 4 sentences. If you really, are aiming for an A, you're going to give as fully developed as a response as possible. And my expectation is that you're going to proofread what you've written before you post. These responses in your discussion posts do not have to be very formal in tone, but since this is a writing class, I still want you to take the time to proofread and double check your writing so that everything you're doing is helping you improve as a writer. Now, you can respond in your own way. Some students like to ask their classmates follow-up questions related to the comparisons or explain why they found the comparisons interesting, striking, or powerful. Other people comment on how and why they're the same or the exact opposite of that person. Also, sometimes people let each other know that they're majoring in the same thing or they're in a similar situation. It's really up to you, but just keep in mind that the goal is to start developing a sense of community for our class. So we need to know and talk about each other. Talk to each other, not about each other. Click here to go to the discussion board. This will just bring you right over to the discussion board. I try to put the topic back up here so that it's easy for you. And you'll see when you scroll down, you can just, I have to put up a new topic title. Oh no, I don't actually. You'll just click on comparisons. You'll open it up. By then there'll be a lot more submissions. Tamra has already responded. And respond. This is where you'll go to read everyone's responses, and this is where you go to respond. Okay, I'm going to go back to our checklist. Okay. Now, the reading assignments. I want you to apply the strategies that you learned about from watching last week's videos, the ones about time management and marking up your texts. I want you to apply them when you're reading, listening to, and watching the following works of poetry. So it's really important that you don't try to read all these things at once. I'm your professor. I chose these things. I like them. And even I can't really get into and fully appreciate these works if I try to read them all at once. So try to plan to have multiple sessions of reading time. It is very, very important that you do not consult any sources that offer interpretations or summaries of these texts. If I thought that you could understand these poems completely just by reading them on your own, guess what? We wouldn't need to have class. So if you rely on what other people say and what people say on the web, you're never going to develop that, that muscle, so to speak, that will enable you to start interpreting things on your own. So I want you to really just trust me, okay? Because I'm judging you at this point on your willingness to put yourself out on a limb, to take a risk, to think about what you're reading. I don't expect you to understand it all, and if you've got any questions about the reading, definitely go over to the discussion board and post questions about what you're reading. I'll answer them. So what you need to do is you need to print out the readings. Print and read Pamela Spiro Wagner's How to Read a Poem, Beginner's Manual. If you click on the link, it will take you to the poem. And I'm doing this because I want to show you how you can print out your readings without wasting a lot of paper or toner. As you'll notice, you could print out this whole page, but then you're printing out all the matter on the side and the top. If you click on the print button up here, it will often, a lot of websites have this, and it will make it possible for you to print it out in an easier format, a more simple format. Can't print it right now, but you can see this is a much more stripped down version of the poem, and you don't have to waste your toner. So that's the first poem you're going to read. The second poem you're going to read is Billy Collins' Introduction to Poetry. Click on the link. I recommend that you just go through them all and print them out at once so that you don't have to keep doing this. Now on this site, I'm pretty sure there's a print button. It's right over here. So you press print. It's going to give you a nicer, more simple format to print out the poem. The next thing that you need to read is an interview with Billy Collins. So I don't want you to just read poems. I really would like you to get inside the mind of particular poets. And Billy Collins is a pretty interesting, easy to understand guy. So this is an interview called A Brisk Walk, an interview with Billy Collins. This is a longer work, as you can see, but it's an interview. I find interviews sort of easier to understand, perhaps, than a short poem. And there is nothing here, no special print button, so you would just go to however you would normally print a document from your computer. Go back. Then I have links to 2 YouTube videos of Collins reading 2 of his poems. So I want you to have an experience of seeing him read his poems and listening to how a poet reads his own poetry. A lot of people sort of appreciate the poems more by hearing them and by seeing the poet. Then the next step, well, actually, after you print out the material, read this section on what to focus on while reading. You have 3 main things to focus on. I don't want you to be overwhelmed by trying to understand everything. Just break it down into these 3 different focal points. One is thinking about, when Spiro Wagner calls her poem a manual. Read this section. I'm not going to go over it step by step, but look at these questions, and these are the questions that you should be, when you're reading, you should be underlining, taking notes in the margins of your text. And if you ever need to look at words for our readings or for our course, I highly recommend the Merriam-Webster's online dictionary. Because let's just take a word like retention. It's a word we're using in my other class. So we look it up, and it gives you good definitions. They're trustworthy compared to maybe some of the other online sources. And you can, if you need help knowing how the word sounds when pronounced, you can click on the sound button and listen to the pronunciation of the word. And then they have this cool feature for see the meaning of this word defined for English language learners. I know most of you are not, your first language is English, but as you're noticing, sometimes definitions just have other versions of the word in there, and so you might not get a clear understanding of the word. If you click on retention for English language learners, you'll see that you get a more thorough description, the act of keeping someone or something, rather than just using the word itself. So I highly recommend this dictionary. Going back to week 2. Then there's going to be, I'm going to create some video lessons on stanza design, visual design, and enjambment, as well as a video on how to quote poetry, how to use ellipsis marks, and create signal phrases. I'm going to have those up by the end of this weekend. And then your 4th discussion post is not going to be very surprising. Your post must be 400 words. You need to support your points by using direct quotes from the poems and by using at least one quote from A Brisk Walk, the interview with Collins, and apply what you have learned from watching the video on quoting poetry and using signal phrases. So what you're getting a chance to put what you're learning into practice, and then if your last name starts with A through H, you need to post a response to the questions in Focus 1. And if your last name starts with I through Z, you have to post a response to the questions on Focus 2. The only difference between the reading focus points and the essay, the general discussion post, is that you have to use at least one direct quote from the interview in each one of your responses. And again, you just click on the discussion board to start posting. So that's it for this week. It's going to take you time to read and think about what you've read and think about how you want to respond. But I think it's a manageable amount of work, and I look forward to seeing your questions and your comments and your discussion posts.